Absolutely. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so glad to have you joining us today. My name is Amy Sims, and I am a career development advisor with Embry-Riddle. I oversee aerospace engineering students and business students. And today we're excited to share how easy it is to connect you guys with talented students through Parker Dewey's Micro-Internship platform. Today we have over 1,300 students that are currently registered, and they are eager to gain meaningful experience. So we're thrilled to have you here to explore how your organization can provide more of those opportunities. I want Joshua to give a brief introduction. If you want to go ahead, Josh, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. As my colleague said, my name is Joshua Welsh. I am also a CDA here at Embry-Riddle University. I oversee mechanical engineering students, civil, software, and electrical engineering. And yeah, we're just excited to have you guys be a part of this journey with us as we're bridging the gap between opportunities with our students and employers. Thank you. And I will pass it to Jeffrey.
Wow, thank you. I didn't realize how many students were registered. That's incredible. That's incredible. And one of the things I like is every one of the students is registered because they want to be there, not because schools require it, but we'll talk more about that in a second. So I'm Jeffrey. I'm the founder of Parker Dewey. Truly honored to be here. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. First of all, the chat is open. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, whatever, feel free to put them in. If you see me looking over to the right, it's because I'm keeping an eye on the chat window. I'll try to hit on those things as we go through, but I'll also leave some time at the end. Second, from a housekeeping perspective, we will be recording this session and sharing the slides afterwards. I know people always ask that, so I want to get that out of the way. So with that, here is today's agenda. We're going to first do a very quick overview of what's going on in the space. We'll talk about what a micro-internship is. Then we're going to talk about some actionable strategies that you can use right now, irrespective of where you are in your recruiting cycle. And then the part I always get most excited about is a funded program that allows you to see the impact of this with no cost to you while still having the students get paid. And as I said, we'll leave some time for Q&A. I'll try to get through it as we're going through. So again, please don't be bashful. So real quickly as background, Parker Dewey's an organization that's been around about a decade. We've worked with organizations ranging from one-person startups to Fortune 100, and we are 100% focused on helping improve that college to career transition and improving in the way that supports students, schools, and the learners. The way we do it is through this concept of the micro-internships, these short-term projects, which I'll talk more about. This was all created in response to what students and employers were saying. So college students, to the extent, again, Amy and Joshua, I'm sure hear this firsthand, 75% of college students are saying they want to begin career exploration during their first or second years. But oftentimes when they show up to career fairs or info session, the response is, oh, come back when you're a junior or senior. That's when we have internships or full-time roles. Again, sort of missing out on that opportunity when students are most interested in exploration. Students are also saying the traditional recruiting process is not effectively allowing them to showcase their skills to employers. They feel like they're getting filtered out, which is, by the way, consistent with what employers are saying as well. And in fact, 95% of college students said the best way to recruit them, the best way for them to learn about organizations, to demonstrate their skills, to determine what is the right fit, is through real project-based experiences. On the other side of it, for the employers here, you guys know this stuff cold. Cost per hire continues to increase. According to the National Association of Colleges and Employers, it's north of $6,000. We've heard companies where it's significantly more. That also doesn't factor in all of the other costs that come up, especially if it's not the right hire. To that, about 50% of recent college grads wind up leaving the first job within the first year. That's not because they want a job hop, but because there's really a lot of difficulty in mutually assessing skills and fit earlier in the process. And ultimately, employers are looking for a better way to engage and assess candidates earlier in the process. So today, what we're going to talk about is how to drive interest from candidates that align to your goals even before showing up on campus for the career fair or the info session, or after you are on campus, whether it's presenting in the class or otherwise, how to keep students engaged. They could be juniors and seniors that are near-term candidates for internships and full-time roles, but it could also be those first and second year students. How to evaluate candidates and get insights more effectively, and again, not at the 11th hour, but earlier in the process. And when we talk about insights, we're not just talking technical skills, but also core skills like communication, problem solving, etc. And then even if you can't visit campus this year, how do you reach and engage the students? All of this is possible through micro-internships. So as I said, I'll share the slide. It's pretty dense, but the highlight of micro-internships is they are very, very short-term paid professional projects that employers give to college students. And to unpack it a little bit, the projects are typically 10, 20, 30-hour assignments that are professional in nature, but aren't high stakes. They don't require onboarding or training. They don't require access to sensitive info or data or systems or anything else. So obviously a 10 or 15-hour micro internship may not be repairing a landing gear or going and accessing top secret info like when we do work with Northrop Grumman, but rather these are all of those other projects. They can take place year round, so they're not just during the summer or tied to a semester class schedule. They can take place year round. And they really provide an effective way of engaging and assessing. A couple other quick housekeeping notes. The projects are paid. Students are paid for their work, and they're paid through Parker Dewey. So we're actually the employer of record for the duration of the micro internship, which makes it really, really easy for employers to offer these opportunities to students. In addition, to the extent that you hire a student for a full-time role or summer internship or anything else, we're not a staffing firm, so there's no temp to perm or other costs or anything else. One other thing I want to note is micro internships a little bit of a misnomer. Don't think about it as a replacement for a summer internship or an apprenticeship or a co-op or a capstone or anything else. Micro internships are recruiting tools. So as one of the college students described it, while the summer internship might be like getting engaged and the full-time role is like getting married, a micro internship is like going on a date. Now, as opposed to it being hypothetical, let's show some real examples. One of the things Parker Dewey does is we actually will take full-time job descriptions or summer internship descriptions and unpack them into suggested micro internships that are both engaging for the student, but also provide you insights on skills. So in this example, entry-level data marketing role, the student at Embry-Riddle that may be studying business that's not thinking about United Airlines for a marketing role, what a great opportunity, because they can do something like a competitive campaign analysis. Again, you're not sharing any sensitive info, you're not sharing any sensitive data. The student can do it on his or her own, and you're getting insights on the technical skills. So can they conduct market research, but also creative thinking and problem solving and presentation skills. Or we can look at a more technical role. So this is a production operator role, something that is manufacturing floor, working with robotics and mechatronics equipment. Again, the micro internship is not giving a student a real project where you're working with a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment, but it might be something like training manual development or best practices. Again, where a student is doing his or her independent research, they're able to demonstrate their technical acumen, but also things like problem solving and attention to detail and critical thinking. It could be a programming role. Again, you're not going to give access to a core code base or the app on the App Store, but you're going to have them do things like AI research or user experience testing. So as these students are doing micro internships, this is experiential recruiting for you. It's a way to drive employer branding and skills-based hiring. In employer branding, we're not talking about what t-shirts or swag you have at the career fair, but helping the students understand the plethora of roles and opportunities available at your organization, whether you're a well-known organization or maybe one that's a little bit below the radar. But it's also skills-based hiring. as we talked about, you're getting insights beyond GPA and major and someone's academic pedigree or who they know or how well they interview. You're getting better insights on their skills, and you're getting them throughout the process. So in the application process, you're able to see, are they a self-starter? Do they have interest? Again, back to the earlier comment about the volume of students from Embry-Riddle who are already on the platform, that's key. That students are there because they want to be there. And you're able to see, again, are they motivated? Are they excited? As they're working on the project, you're getting insights on communication and empathy and coachability. And then from the final deliverable they turn in, you're getting those role-specific skills, but also things like intellectual curiosity. So I'm going to take a sip of coffee and a breath. Joshua and Amy, anything you want to add before we talk about how this can tie into your recruiting strategy?
I just wanted to add my 2 cents. Our students are definitely passionate about the opportunity to get that experience, especially the ones that don't have internship experience yet. And a lot of the feedback that I've gotten so far from some of those 1,300 students that have registered are the facts that they don't have, what they're looking for is more opportunities that are geared towards their field of study. And so that is something that we're hoping to gain from your participation today. So thank you.
Yeah, I love that. And we'll talk about a couple of examples. There's a great mechanical engineering example we'll go through. So as I talked about before, we're gonna hit 4 case studies, again, very, very quick on how companies are using this throughout the recruiting cycle. Again, whether it's before they're on campus, keeping candidates warm, getting insights on skills, or again, if they can't be there in person. In the first example, this is a leading hospital system. They were facing 2 key challenges. And while this was a healthcare organization, I'm sure a lot of the folks, just from looking at the names that I see of participants, are having similar issues in the aerospace or aeronautics field. One, massive competition for students who are studying allied health. There was a massive shortage. The second issue they were facing was they had roles beyond allied health. So while they were a healthcare organization, they still had roles in marketing and sales and HR, et cetera. So what they were really focused on is, how do we reach and build a competitive advantage with those students who are already interested in healthcare? But also, how do we drive more first and second year students to have interest in our field, or to think beyond sort of the typical roles? So what they did is, before they went to campus, they actually posted some micro-internships that were very much aligned to those roles they were trying to fill. Again, these weren't go work with a patient or go operate a multi-million-dollar piece of MRI equipment, similar to what would be working on the landing gear. There were other projects, and again, happy to share some examples. What happened with HCA was, before setting foot on campus, they already had a pool of candidates who were excited to visit their career fair booth, to come to the info session. And again, not just the obvious students, but those from other areas. HCA also found that these projects provided a differentiator. When they were at the booth, it wasn't just rehashing what was on the website or being handed the resume and hearing the elevator pitch. They were actually able to discuss these real project opportunities. HCA also had insights on the students up front, so they can make sure to invite students to certain events or focus on them at those sessions. And again, it could be students with certain technical skills, but it could also be with geographic ties. Again, the student who is from Chicago, who wants to return home but goes to school in Florida. How can we reach that student and make sure we're building that relationship? And again, this was all focused on those campus visits beforehand. What about keeping the students engaged afterwards? Well, this is a great example, and again, ties back to something Joshua said about mechanical engineering. So this is a global medical device company, and they were having students showing up on campus and visiting the booth, and they were very focused in particular on mechanical engineering students. But they were focused on them not necessarily to be working in the lab, but for business development roles. So they had a bunch of people coming to the booth who were interested in learning, but their challenge was, how do we keep them engaged afterwards? They weren't opening emails. They didn't want to come to yet another webinar. So this organization did not want to lose that relationship. So they focused initially on that high volume, difficult to fill business development role where they wanted individuals with strong mechanical engineering skills who may have realized they didn't want to be in the lab. They were also having a tough time filling some of those roles because of my earlier point, some geographic ties. They had locations in Andover, Massachusetts, and Memphis, and Austin. So we're looking for students that wanted to be in those places upon graduation. So one of the things we did was create business development auditions for the students who were visiting at the career fair or at the info session. And they were crafted, one, to keep the students engaged after the events, but two, to help the hiring managers better assess the skills, both the mechanical engineering skills, the ability to understand various products, but also the sales and business development and communication skills. So for example, the micro-internship that they did at High Volume was, we're going to give you 5 choices of different medical devices that we offer. We want you to select one and do a complete review of it. Then put together a 5-page sales presentation that you would use to share information about our device, compare and contrast to other devices in the market, and highlight the benefits. Again, really teasing out the students' technical skills, but also their ability to convey them in a business development setting. What happened with this was, first of all, is a wild success from all of a traditional metric perspective. Email open rate, click-through participation, but more importantly, they found the success went beyond the student engagement. They were able to quickly determine which students were the best fit, not based upon GPA, but based upon their actual work, so they could focus on these candidates. So in the first class that they did this for, with a large number of business development reps, 2 years later, 100% of those hires are still with the company, 100%. And when you think about the annual turnover rate, as I alluded to before, 45% in the first year, and business development tends to be closer to 70 or 80%, the fact that they have 100% retention is pretty incredible, including one student who got an Employee of the Year award. In the second and third years that they've done this, again, still early on the data, but still consistently 100%. The other thing they heard was from the hiring managers, they were off the charts happy. In their words, they didn't waste time interviewing the wrong folks. And when they made that hiring decision, they had confidence that it was the right hire, which is something we'll talk about in the next example. So this company was having a huge challenge recruiting HR professionals. They were a national fitness chain, had a massively well-regarded and well-known brand, but they were finding they were getting inundated with the application avalanche. Again, we've all faced it, the one-click applications and the like, and a lot of those individual students were more interested in being trainers or working at the local facilities than actually being sort of executives at corporate. So as a result, they had stacks of resumes and were spending hours flipping through them. So this organization took a slightly different approach. They went to hiring managers and asked for some small tasks that would come up, those we should and I shouldn't tasks that we all have on our plate. The article that needs to be written, the job description that needs to be updated, the research that needs to be done. And what they did is they told those hiring managers, here's access to a resource, a pool of college students who are excited to help you on those small tasks. Hiring managers loved it because they were able to get that extra set of hands. In fact, the learning and development team used it to help do research on best practices for new hire onboarding. So while the hiring managers were getting work off their plate, from a recruiting perspective, they were again engaging and assessing potential candidates. So they had this great always on pool of talent. So in the example with L&D, they actually selected 2 students to do research on best practices for new hire onboarding. One student was a 3.9 GPA who was studying HR. The other had a slightly lower GPA and was a general business major. Both of the students submitted to work. I'm sure you can guess where the story's going. The example at the top is the HR major with a 3.9. There's some good stuff in there, but they quickly saw, like, lack of attention to detail from some typos. They could see the presentation wasn't quite there. They couldn't quite empathize with what a professional or hiring manager would need. The bottom example was the student who, again, in their words, they probably would have passed over in the traditional process. Not only did she show her ability to quickly go do the research and get the technical know-how, but could also present in a way that demonstrated empathy and communication and grit and problem solving. Again, you can see pretty quickly the difference between the two deliverables, and it gives you insights beyond what you could see from a resume. Fast forward, that student at the bottom wound up doing a summer internship, and a year and a half later is now in her full-time role at that organization. The last example is about data, and it's data whether or not you can be on campus, data to really help guide decisions, but also data, I guess I would say, to demonstrate internally the effectiveness of your work, which is just so important right now with early career under attack. So this is a global Fortune 500 company that actually had a really, really small campus recruiting effort. The team there was trying to not only defend that effort, but they wanted to scale it up. So they very much focused on some corporate goals around filling for locations that were difficult, not just the DC headquarters, but Texarkana and Holland, Michigan, and Rockford, Illinois. And they were also focused on some community initiatives they had. So like all of the other examples, we crafted micro-internships that aligned to full-time roles. This organization was able to reach the right candidates, not just from a geographic perspective, but also from skills. They had the data to defend the cost, to prove the effectiveness. And what was really interesting is they started by launching it within one of their employee resource groups to drive gender equity. And almost immediately, departments were coming to them saying, hey, can we do this for our marketing hires, or for our supply chain hires, or for our mechanical engineering hires? It was pretty incredible. Again, when does that ever happen? This works for companies because it fits throughout the recruiting process. Again, whether it's top of funnel about how do we access and engage the students, how do we gain insights on the skills, and how do we build the relationships to lead to better conversion and starting. Some great data showing the effectiveness. Typically, we're hearing between 40 and 80% cost savings. I know it's a big range, but companies spend different amounts. And from a first-year retention perspective, it's north of 98%. Here's the part where I get really excited. Through a very generous grant, everything I showed you, you can see for free. It's not a reimbursement. It's nothing you need to apply for. You're able to post these micro-internships, work with Embry-Riddle students on the projects, have access to all of the data, and 100% of the cost is covered through this grant. Again, it can help you reach beforehand. It can help you keep the Embry-Riddle students warm after, gain insights on their skills. And again, the program exists because this organization wants to continue to support employers, but also help prepare the students and get great insights for Amy, Joshua, and the rest of the team to continue to coach and support. And beyond the projects itself, what you get through this trial that this foundation is funding is, again, access to all of the data to align to your goals. So my suggestion to get started is, first of all, I'll copy this link and put it in the chat, or you can use the fancy QR code. What we always suggest is send us a job description. Send us an example of a tough to fill role, a summer internship. It can be a PDF, a link, bullet points, whatever. We'll make some recommendations for you. And we'll show you how you can use it for any one of these 5 areas. Again, whether you haven't been on campus yet because you don't start your recruiting into the spring, or maybe you were already there and you're looking to keep the students warm. Maybe you feel like you're a little bit behind or uncertain about what your needs are going to be come the spring or summer. All of these are great use cases, and we can show you how you can leverage this, especially through this very generous grant. So I'm going to take a breath. I see a question here about a list of skill sets and target projects for the students who have applied. Great question, Joe. I think I may have hit that as we were going through. So back to the chart I was showing, and as I said, I'll share the slides afterwards. The skills really range. We've identified 12 really core skills that come up all the time. Again, coachability, problem solving, communication, attention to detail. Again, those core skills that apply irrespective of what the role is. And then we map out the very specific technical skills depending on the specific project and need. So when we do work with Northrop Grumman, for instance, sometimes they're hiring for supply chain. They need very technical skills around that. Sometimes they're hiring for individuals that understand, I'm probably going to mispronounce it, porosity in carbon fiber. Again, very technical skills, and they're posting micro-internships to, again, both assess for those core skills, but also the ability to understand, I'm not going to try to say it again, that level of detail. We're doing work with another company right now that does work on landing gears for airplanes. So again, they're posting micro-internships, very, very targeted to understand, again, does the student understand the core nuances of various landing gears and differences in maintenance processes, etc. But they also want to tease out, is this student going to show up on time if we hire them? Well, a good signal is, did they turn in the micro-internship on time? How are they going to communicate with me if we hire them? Are they going to be professional? Again, good example is looking at the application. They're seeing the quality of the work. All of these skills get teased out. Joe, I hope that answered your question. If it did not, please let me know. What other questions do we have? Amy or Joshua, feel free to jump in with questions you have as well, if any. Did I do that good of a job?
Just out of curiosity, have you had any like CAD design micro internships?
Yeah, we see a ton. We see a ton. So when we're doing these, we typically go through some of the most plain vanilla, because again, every company is hiring people who can do sales or marketing or finance. But one of the things we do to the production operation role I showed before is we can dig in a very, very technical way. So CAD CAM all the time. Again, it's not going to be, we want you to do this and we're just going to trust it sight unseen to go design a new aircraft wing, but they're using it to tease these things out. Another thing we see is a lot of IP research. So we want you to crawl through IP or patent filings for new technology around blank with an engine. And we want you to do a comparison of these different IP files. Again, it really ranges the gamut, which is why I like to put the QR code and link up there. Send us the job description. Send us the most technical one you have that you think there's zero chance a micro internship would fit. We'll let you know if it doesn't, but we've been doing this 10 years. We're pretty good at it. So again, even Northrop Grumman, a company that literally works with top secret data and has air-gapped computers, they're not giving micro internships that are working with that data. But some of the projects I mentioned are ones Northrop has used. And they're using it again to drive engagement from students who may have preconceived notions, students who may be attending schools that they don't recruit at, but also to build the relationships to give them a competitive advantage over a Lockheed. What other questions do we have? I truly love to be challenged, so please, please challenge us. We have an entire team that literally all they do is look at job descriptions and craft projects. And again, when we're crafting them, similar to the examples I showed, and I think this hits on Joe's question, we'll even map out a rubric and specific skills that those projects will highlight. And we'll share those with clients. We'll share them with whether it's United Airlines or Spirit Aerospace or Northrop Grumman, and we can refine and tweak to really make sure it's teasing out those skills that both you as a recruiter and the hiring managers are most interested in assessing based upon the specifics of the role.
Is there a specific email address that they could send those job descriptions to, or how do they reach you?
Yeah, they can. I'll put an email in here. We actually have a dedicated one. They can use on the website I shared or the QR code. There's a form at the bottom, so they can just drop it in there. But I'm gonna give me 1 second. I put in a dedicated email address we have for Embry-Riddle. You can use that as well. that gets prioritized to make sure the client success team sees it. So whether you use that email address or the form, we typically follow up with organizations either the same day or next day with our suggestions. Again, we've been doing this a long time. We've kind of seen it all. So feel free to use that. Got a question from Allison about the internship being done at our location. The answer is yes, but we don't suggest it. So to be clear, the vast majority, even pre-COVID, 97, 98% of the micro internships are remote. And we find it's better. It's better for employers because they don't have to worry about where a student's going to sit, or in the case of Northrop, we need to get them badged and cleared and everything else if they're going to be in the office. But it also comes down to the fact that these are current students. They may not be able to leave the campus to go do something on site during sort of the typical workday. What we found is the micro internships are typically done remote, but a lot of times employers will invite the student, for instance, to do a final presentation in the office or over Zoom or whatever's easiest. What we also see a lot of, and this goes back to the example I gave with the medical device company, when the project is being posted, they will say something like, this project is being used to identify and engage students interested in our on-site summer internship in Chicago, Illinois. Please only apply if you are interested in being on-site. I'm adding the amplification. On-site in Chicago this summer. We see a lot of that. Because again, there's students who go to Embry-Riddle who are from Chicago who want to come home, but may not realize there's great opportunities. It's a great way to engage them, even if they can't be on site for the duration of the micro internship itself. So again, it's kind of ironic. I'm probably the biggest believer in on-site summer internships and on-site full-time roles. I think this whole shift to remote work has a variety of different issues. I'm a believer in on-site. But I also believe that micro internships are a remote recruiting tool that still helps build those relationships and get the insights, not as a replacement for the on-site summer internship, but another pathway to it. It's a complement. Sorry for the very long-winded answer. Joe, thank you again for digging in. My suggestion, if you're still here, or if you're listening to the recording, and for anyone else, is don't stress. Don't feel like you have to work too hard digging into the website or thinking about projects. We want this to be easy. This is our job. If you send us the job description, if you send us just a couple of bullet points, a random idea, hey, I'm thinking about blank. We love doing this stuff. It's fun for us. We can share the best practices. We can share what works. We want this to be easy and effective for y'all. We know how busy campus recruiting teams are and employers in general. We want this to make your lives easier as opposed to adding to your workload. And everything we've done, from the fact that it's a single platform where you can reach students, from the fact that we are the employer of record, from the fact there's no temp to perm, the fact that we craft projects, are all designed to save you time and make life easier and more effective. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, with that, this concludes the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much to Joshua and Amy for the opportunity. And really, it's just such a pleasure working with you all and the rest of the team at Embry-Riddle. Anything you want to close us out with?
I just want to reiterate my gratitude for everyone that was able to attend today. And thank you, Jeffrey, for your time. That was a great presentation.
Yes, thank you, Jeffrey.
We love what we do, obviously, so hopefully it comes across. It's nice because it's one of those areas where it's a win-win-win. The employers benefit because they can identify, engage, hire more effectively. The students win because it's a great way to get the right job and a great job. And obviously for Embry-Riddle, you're able to support the students, support the employers. It's so heartwarming to do these things, so thank you. With that, have a great rest of the day and rest of the week, everyone.
You as
Thank
well.
you. All right. Bye-bye.